Apple, games, and money, and why are the M1 laptops being overlooked? This is MacVoices. This week's MacVoices is supported by Kolide. Kolide is an endpoint solution that uses the most powerful untapped resource in IT, end users. Learn more at kolide.com/MacVoices. Welcome to MacVoices. This is the talk of the Apple community, and I'm Chuck Joyner. The MacVoices Live panel wraps up its discussion of Apple and the money it's making in games without apparently even trying. Then we turn our attention to why the M1 MacBooks seem to be overlooked in all of the articles claiming to name some of the best, most valuable laptops out there. Let's go back and let the panel do the talking. Well, and just to take this one more step, I think there are a lot of fans, if not everybody here, of Setapp, but it's not unprecedented for an app to leave Setapp.
Absolutely.
So, once again,
I think they require a 2-year. Setapp requires a 2-year commitment.
Okay, I didn't know that, but I think a lot of people are choosing to stay, and Setapp chooses to keep them. I would assume it's a two-way street,
Right.
But some decide, okay, they would rather go back out on their own, and so all these different business models are out there. It's just a matter of which ones you like, and which ones the developers like, and which ones Apple likes, or whoever else is making some of these things. So, yeah.
And my understanding is Setapp doesn't require the exclusivity that Apple Arcade does.
That's correct.
I can download Bartender as part of Setapp, or I can download Bartender and license it individually, depending on what my needs are.
Well, and you can do that with some of the Apple Arcade games too.
Oh, can you? I thought they were only on Apple Arcade.
No, they're not on Android, and they're not on other subscription services.
Oh well, right.
That's what Apple's exclusive on Apple Arcade means.
So now, it's a platform exclusivity, Jeff.
It's a platform. Yes, and using exclusivity in the sense that it's excluding specific platforms as opposed to excluding all other platforms.
Okay. Mm-hmm. I guess I hadn't dug deep enough to really notice any of these games being in both parts of the App Store.
Well, and what that tells me is that Apple did a really good job with their marketing, because that's exactly what they wanted us to take away from. It's an exclusive on Apple Arcade.
I thought that too. I was like Jeff. I did not know that, but I don't really do anything with games, so I don't pay any attention.
I mean, I'm a casual gamer, so I like the stuff on Apple Arcade simply because I don't have to worry about the in-app ads. I don't have to worry about being tempted to make in-app purchases. I can play it when I want to play it and just enjoy the game.
Were some of these games out before?
Yes.
Were they?
Yeah.
So maybe that's the reason. Same thing like with Setapp. Like some of the apps I already bought. So
I think Apple Arcade kind of tweaks them differently, because wasn't there like a modify for Apple Arcade? Well, no, for Apple Arcade, I think like for some reason Candy Crush, there might be a Candy Crush like kind of thing in there, but it's not really the same.
Angry Birds is there.
That's it.
It's just Angry Birds.
Okay. Mm-hmm. All right. But there are a few where they kind of dressed up a little bit differently. And obviously you got to change a lot of things around when your model changes out of the, if there's nothing to purchase, then you got to kind of take that into effect too in Apple Arcade.
Mm-hmm.
Well, but then you can go to a game like the Oregon Trail. That's an Apple Arcade exclusive. So they do have exclusives in there too. So you can't buy the Oregon Trail, but you can get it in Apple Arcade in that sense.
Some developers are doing that, where they're using the exclusive tag in the more literal sense, where this is the only place you can get it.
Mhm.
To my knowledge, Apple only created 2 iOS games, and one was
Poker game.
poker game, and the other one was Warren Buffett's Paperboy thing that came out.
Yeah, it was Texas Hold'em was the Apple one.
Texas Hold'em was the Apple one, but there's also one that came out. It was like either Paperboy or something. Warren Buffett's did something in it. Let me pull it up. But those are the two I could think of.
I guess, again, I'm showing my bias, but because I really wouldn't recognize the names of some of the more sophisticated games, I sort of thought that Apple Arcade was just not that big a deal and wasn't drawing the super big names. And
it is.
Yeah, when you guys are saying some of those names, even I recognize them, which means that's a pretty big deal. So, again, this is just an area that, for a bunch of non-gaming people, we're talking about games a lot all of a sudden, but I think maybe at least I'm starting to appreciate just what a big deal it is.
Even look at Star Trek. Star Trek Legends is an Apple Arcade. That's a huge game. It's on Apple Arcade right now.
Yep. Lego has multiple games on Apple Arcade.
Yeah.
And Lego, that's a big name in video game.
Yep. Yeah. Go Star Wars.
Yep.
Mario. That's one thing that Apple never got, and Apple would love to have the plumber come to.
They had him on at one point, but I don't think they didn't left the store.
Well. So there was a Dr. Mario, which I played, and they actually knocked it away. So here's a good example of a game that I liked that went away was Dr. Mario, which was fun. And then I think there's one or two other Mario type games, but certainly no Mario type Nintendo games out there, which, one day, right? You're assuming?
Yep. Well, like everything else, it ebbs and flows, I'm sure.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, I wanted to throw another article into the chat rooms. I don't know how many of you saw this because John Gruber had brought it up. This article references that. But I also saw several other articles. This, by the way, has to be one of the best articles, titles I've ever seen, A Burger Without Heinz.
Mm-hmm.
But it talks a lot about, and Gruber brought this up, that some major websites are doing best laptop picks. And I believe Wirecutter, and I think Ars Technica is also mentioned in there. Yep. They're doing best laptop picks and just totally excluding the M1 Macs, the M1 Mac laptops, excuse me. And, the point there that these guys are trying to make is that, the M1 is beating the daylights out of anything else that Intel or any of the others are putting out, and they're not being recognized. And so, the question becomes why?
Well, okay. So,
Jeff?
First thing, and I saw Gruber talking about this, or Gruber's. Wow. I saw Gruber's piece about this. Man, that was harder to say than I expected. And one of the problems we have is that people are looking at this and saying, why are the M1 Macs being excluded? This isn't new. These publications have been doing this since before Apple Silicon was a thing.
Right.
So the bigger question isn't why are M1 Macs being excluded from these roundups and reviews. It's why are Apple products being excluded from these roundups and reviews if they're supposed to be about laptops and desktop computers in general, as opposed to just Windows PCs.
Mm-hmm.
And I have a feeling part of that is because we still have a mindset with a lot of publications and a lot of writers that you have PCs and then you have Macs. And so when they think I'm going to do a computer roundup, well, to them that means computers that run Windows and not Macs, because Macs are this other thing. So While I'm sure there are people out there that that are intentionally excluding Macs because screw Apple, I think a lot of this is just the Dave. Oh, I love that. Take like this. These computers. I think a lot of this is just the way the industry has been for a long time, and it comes down to people just kind of being lazy with the way they're creating this content. And that's not an excuse.
Windows vendors might advertise in publications. Apple ain't going to do that.
I mean, there's magazines dedicated just to Windows. If you go out there, there's magazines dedicated just to Mac.
PC Mag Digital and
so there's PC Mac out there, and then there's Mac World and Mac whatever. There's a whole bunch of magazines out there too. And then there's sort of the ambiguous ones, which I don't. In the UK, we used to have some great ones. Like Stuff was one. It's not what it sounds like. It's actually it's an IT.
Stuff was a great magazine. I'm with you.
UK has a lot of great.
UK so it's Stuff, and T3 was the other one.
T3 still out there.
Yeah.
So and then similar ones here in the US, but which are basically a tech enthusiast magazine more so than a more specific to a product. So a lot of those kind of magazines you'll always find under top 10, although I've always seen Macs and Apple and Windows computers together, and they'll just kind of rate based on a bunch of things. But I think the Windows centric laptops are never going to put a Mac in there to comparison because they're trying to target their audience, and they know their audience probably don't want Macs, and because historically, like Jeff was saying, that's just how they rolled. They were more Windows centric, and that's what their readers are. And exactly what Jim said, the advertisements are probably coming in more, and every page somebody turns in these magazines is a Dell ad or HP ad, and so on. So there's a lot of that too. But I've seen, my only comment is I've seen plenty of reviews that have both platforms listed in there.
Yeah,
so, I know.
Yeah. And I'm inclined to think that the advertisers aren't directly playing a role in what devices are included in these articles. I think that's more a byproduct. In many cases, we're talking about publications that Warren totally nailed it. They cater to a specific audience. And if that's an audience that is interested in Intel hardware running Windows, then why would you include a Mac in that unless it's like a special article? Here's how to hack a Mac and make it into a great PC.
Right.
Yeah.
But it's still a PC thing. And that's where advertisers are going to go. They're going to go where their audience is.
Right. And a lot of the ads that you'll see are components of PCs and things that stick in your PC and things like that. At least it used to be. So, when Apple kind of, said you can't do that anymore, then that kind of alienated that crowd. And you still see it in IT now. Dave and I can tell you that IT people hate Apple. Most of them do. And they don't know why, except for, they'll keep saying, that you can't modify it, you can't customize it, you can't root it, you can't pop it, whatever they want to do that they're never going to do with their own devices, but they think it's fun.
That's in chapter 1 in the Windows certification manual.
That's right.
One, you hate Apple. Step 2, here's Windows.
That's right.
Windows.
That was on the A+ certification exam too. So so I mean, there's the IT, typically, don't like Apple, and those magazines typically cater to the IT crowd. So,
yeah, but you know what, Warren? I'm running into more and more IT people who secretly will say, once they find out I'm an Apple person.
Oh, I'm digging them out. Yeah, no,
yeah,
I dig them out in my companies all the time. And
they will say, well, I've got a Mac at home.
Yeah, we got secret teams.
I hear that all the time.
Yeah, I mean, it really is kind of amazing, just how it's almost like a deep dark secret. Like,
if you go to Facebook, you'll see the Facebook groups too. Like with the IT specific Facebook groups,
right?
That if somebody posts something about Apple, it turns into like a 500-page going back and forth about how everybody hates Apple, and then it'll be like 5 people, including me, that say you guys are idiots and shut up, and then you'll get a few likes on that and like that. So just like you're saying, there's people out there in the IT world that are coming through, and but most don't. So
it's changing. It is changing.
Yeah.
There's so many companies, and I've talked about this before. The Macs are becoming more and more in the enterprise, and it's changing. It's just going to take time.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think a lot of part of it is so many of these people have iPhones.
That too.
yeah,
Well, that doesn't hurt. Yeah, that doesn't
Mhm.
hurt. I forget if it's in this article or one of the others, but one of the speculations was that if they covered Apple hardware, that it would make their readers angry, because they want to be told what the best PC laptops are, and they don't really care about Apple. And if they start pointing out that the M1, now the M2, are eating everybody's lunch, that's not going to make their readers happy. So they're playing to the audience.
well, you don't want to do that. That riles them up. That definitely riles them up.
Well, I think the problem is that these articles need to be labeled best Windows laptop. If they did that, John Gruber would have no complaint.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it says best
really the
laptop.
complaint.
Best
I mean, a lot of
laptop.
them do, and a lot of magazines do say best Windows laptop. So he might have found a few that didn't.
Yeah. There's been plenty of articles in PC Mag and PC World that have said best laptops, and I would see a MacBook Air listed as one of them.
Yeah.
So,
well, Dave, it's funny you say that, because I went looking, and the last best laptop article that I found on PC Mag included. Now, this is the part that kind of galls you, and I admit that being an Apple fan, but they had one of those horizontal. Now I've got Jeff's problem. Horizontal scrollers on there, and so these are the best laptops, and you see 4 or 5 Windows laptops, and of course if you hit the scroll, you see 4 or 5 more. That you hit the scroll again, and then finally we get to an M1 MacBook. Okay, but under each one of those is one of their little rating systems. 4 dots, 5 dots, 4.5 dots. So there, in those first 2 clicks that you make, there are a whole lot of 4s and 4.5s, a whole lot of 4s and 4.5s. You get over to the MacBook, and it's a 4.5. So why isn't it listed over in a more prominent place as a 4.5?
I mean, maybe
was
it sorted by cost, or was sorted by something? Yeah, it could be something.
I don't know,
but a lot of magazines also do, like you were saying, they'll say, not just best laptop, they'll say best for gaming, best for budget, best for office work, things like that. So they'll it's not as easy as it used to be to come up with the best laptop in order, because there's in a Windows world, at least, any $1,500 Windows laptop is going to be pretty much like the next one. There's not a lot of difference anymore. So what they'll do is they'll try to compare, them in groups at this point. And a lot of times there'll be something like, best overall or something like that. And I'll see MacBook in there, so it will sometimes win a category, but not,
Today's MacVoices is supported by Kolide. Kolide is an endpoint security solution that uses the most powerful untapped resource in IT, end users. Old school device management tools like MDMs force disruptive agents onto employee devices that slow performance and treat privacy as an afterthought. Kolide does things differently, though. Instead of forcing changes on users, Kolide notifies your team via Slack when their devices are insecure and gives them step-by-step instructions on how to solve the problem. For IT admins, Kolide provides a single dashboard that lets you monitor the security of your entire fleet, whether they're running on Mac, Windows, or Linux. That visibility makes it easy to prove compliance to your auditors, customers, and leadership. And by reaching out to employees via a friendly Slack message, Kolide can help you build a culture in which everyone contributes to security. You can meet your compliance goals today by putting users first. Visit kolide.com/MacVoices to find out how. That's Kolide, KOLIDE.com/MacVoices. Thanks to Kolide for supporting this week's MacVoices. Well, to argue the other side, though, if I wanted to, Apple has 2, maybe 3 models. I mean, they can be customized, but they've got 2 or 3 basic models to choose from. Whereas on the Windows side, you have 30 or 40 made by a whole lot of different people. So, if you walk into wherever you're going to walk into and try to buy a Windows laptop, you probably need some guidance. If you go to buy a Mac laptop, you only have 2 or 3 options of the actual laptop model. And then you have, how much RAM do you want? How much hard drive do you want? Or SSD, but beyond that, there's just almost not a lot to say.
Yeah, I don't really need a review to decide which Mac to get.
Yeah, so that's not a bad thing.
Me, and this is the one I want.
Yeah,
the Windows people writing the articles look at all the 3 or 4 different Mac models and like, hell if I know which one is best. I don't know. Yeah. They all kind of look the same, and they all kind of have the same parts in there, and for the most part, hey, this one has a touch bar still. Maybe that's good. Get that one. I don't know.
Yeah, but meanwhile, the PC people need, well, am I going to get a Lenovo, or I'm going to get a Dell, or I'm going to get, something from Asus, or, whatever. So if I were to argue the other side, then I would say there's some logic to what they're trying to do. But I do feel like that overlooking a Mac laptop in any article that is entitled "The Best Laptops," that's a bit disingenuous.
I think anybody who wants a Mac is not going to read these lists anyways to have them listed in order. Because if you want a Mac, you want a Mac. I mean, if you're looking for,
I agree.
If you're looking for a Windows computer, then these are, that's where you're going to go to these magazines and look for orders of best, which is probably an impossible job at this point anyways. Because like I said, at this point, anything over $500 is going to be in one class, and they're all going to be the same. 5 to so they're not that much different anymore. Is what I'm saying.
To me, the question is, who is the reader that's like, well, I might buy a Windows machine, I might buy a PC machine, but it depends on the battery and the keyboard, or
That's what I'm saying. It doesn't exist
anymore. And VGA port.
Yeah. What person is in that category?
Nobody.
I wouldn't think there probably are. There probably low end people that are like, certainly like, my mom, when she used the computer, of course we got her a Mac, but she really never used anything but a web browser. Mm-hmm. So she could have, used any kind of computer, and even a Chromebook now, and it wouldn't have made any difference. But most people are but she didn't look at any best of lists. She just called me up and said, "What do I get?" I was actually in Micro Center today earlier, and I happened to walk by the Windows laptops, and 17-inch laptops. Who buys these things? I tried to pick it up.
Gamers.
I tried to pick. I guess, but oh my god! Well, and it was so ugly. It had like 1-inch bezels.
Yeah, gamers.
So it was like 19 inches by the time you included the bezels and everything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it felt like it had extra bricks in it. It's like I need a suitcase just for this.
It's a desktop replacement. They call it.
But couldn't they make it? Remotely. It looked like it was from 2005. It's like, don't they have better injection molding? And can't they?
If you're a gamer, you don't care about how the laptop looks. You care about how it plays and the screen looks. And I've seen crappy Windows screens.
Well, then I would think, okay, make it steampunk or something. Everybody cares about how things look. Well,
they have those.
The ones I saw were it just looked shabby. That's what it looked like. It looked like Eastern European. It looked like a Yugo.
There you go.
If somebody asks me what laptop to go get, I'll send them to Best Buy and say pick them up, and the one that feels the best to you is the one you want in that price range.
Yeah, but that's what you say for every product, right?
Yeah, tell them Warren sent you. Yeah.
Hey, Chuck.
Tomatoes. Go to Best Buy
and use this affiliate.
Tomatoes.
Yeah,
fill it out.
Jeff?
I'm going to take a controversial stance on this and say I think that Gruber and everyone else that's getting all upset about this, they're unnecessarily getting their panties in a bunch over this. And actually,
Gruber just got us talking about him.
Yeah, so well done, Gruber. But Warren nailed it when he said the people that actually look for these articles and look for these lists, they're not going to be buying Macs anyhow.
No.
Yeah, that's a fair point.
They know what they want, and they don't need a magazine. I don't need no magazine telling me otherwise. I'm getting that.
Yeah, you just go to the Apple store and you pick out your Mac and you leave.
I'm going to that. I'm getting that beautiful MacBook Air.
Oh,
beautiful MacBook Air. Too.
Keep that out of camera shot. You don't want your wife seeing it.
Yeah. Let me catch up with the chat room here because there are a couple things I want to make sure we get in. Hang on just a second.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, hang on just a second, Jeff, because I want you in on this. Claire in the chat room said she's having this issue right at the moment, choosing a Windows laptop mainly because Boot Camp is gone. And when I ask her what she's doing with it, she says that she does cinematography but also enjoys gaming. Would be nice to have one device to handle both passions. So, and that Mac is winning the design war as always, but I must admit that some of the Asus and Dell products are starting to get better.
Sure.
Well, it's hard for them not to get better.
Well, right. And
where they were.
A lot of the software that you use in cinematography is available on both platforms now and has been for a lot of years. That's not true of gaming, especially since the transition to M1 and now M2 might get better on the gaming front with the newest M2 chips. Apple has been pushing hard for developers to start using Metal 3 more and adding more features to it, but is it really going to make that big of an impact?
Right.
I would say probably not. And the two recommendations I made aren't going to work for gaming. You're not going to be able to play any serious stellar Windows games in parallels, and even in UMB where you're virtualizing the PC hardware, because Apple doesn't give you access to hypervisor, you're not getting a full virtualization there, so it's not going to be able to handle gaming or accelerated graphics or anything like that.
So for this person who wrote, the gaming is the issue. I mean, there's
that's what it sounds like.
Yeah, that's where it puts you over the edge. So I mean, you could get a Mac and you could get Amazon Web Services and to give you a Windows instance where you can remote onto, and I've done this too for people where they'll give you like a remote desktop to one of their Windows desktops, and Microsoft does it too. And it's a couple bucks a month, and you have Windows.
But how well will that work for gaming? Does it have? Okay.
Let me back up. It doesn't yet, but they're working on it. So I know, like, Andrew will probably tell you too, but I know, like, Oculus, the VR headset, has a thing now too where if you don't have a gaming PC, you could rent a gaming PC instance like Amazon Web Services has, and it's almost fast enough to play. And this is a whole streaming. This is a thing now, right? Streaming gaming. This is
yeah. So, I mean, it's become a big deal.
But right now, I don't know how it works, and I don't game, but eventually it could.
The interesting thing, Chuck, is you launched this discussion with an article saying that Apple basically has the majority of revenue in the gaming market, but nobody buys an Apple device for gaming. Like, we just had somebody on the watching now that was like, I'm thinking of buying an Asus machine for gaming. Nobody buys any Apple device saying, I'm buying this device for gaming.
Touch.
People
iPod
don't
Touch.
buy an iPhone so they can run.
iPod Touch is gone.
Not anymore.
Yeah, that's the only device I can think of is an iPod Touch, or maybe an iPad.
But that's just like something for your kids
Casual
or something.
gamer.
But
right.
and okay, not nobody, but almost that's really not a market. And the interesting thing is so all the people that buy machines for the purpose of gaming, they'll never look at a Mac, or at least not so far. And one wonders how much effort is Apple ever going to go after that end of the market, because they already have a majority of the revenue. So they could do all this work to make a better high-end gaming machine, and but how much marginal gain is that to Apple? Is that even worth it for? You go off and make your fancy Xboxes and 17-inch PCs. We don't care. We're laughing all the way to the bank.
Yeah.
I mean, if you put an M2 chip in an Apple TV and maybe added some graphic card power to it, and expanded Apple Arcade to include some real games, they could do it.
Yeah, but the point is that's not going to be that much of a game for Apple.
Exactly.
No, but they do talk about. I mean, it's been rumored and it's never happened.
They may do it. What may happen is they wind up doing it by accident. Or incident, which is like lots of other things. Like now, Apple has now destroyed the camera market, and look at all the markets that Apple has destroyed. Not really intentionally saying like we're going to go after the camera market. We're going to go after, what are Kindles and whatever.
Right.
So they may wind up just upping Apple Silicon to the point where, oh well, yep, now we can do these high-end gaming things, and they may wind up eating that too, but not because it was a big goal that they went after. Just like, oh yeah, you're another piece of, let me pick that out of my tire.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let me fill in some of Claire's other comments, because this is interesting. She said that they use Amazon Web Services for running a large live stream for Expo 2020. Not sure which Expo that is, Claire, but that's okay. It's a fantastic service, but the delay is too large for gaming currently. And she says she's purchased many Apple devices in the past, thousands spent, and yes, it has always been for professional use.
Mm-hmm.
So this Mac Voices Live panel concludes in the next edition of Mac Voices with a conversation about virtualization on the Mac and where it stands in relation to gaming, productivity software, and more. That's next time on Mac Voices. I hope you'll join us. Until then, and as always, I'm Chuck Joyner. Thanks for watching. Visit MacVoices.com for show notes and to connect with Chuck on social media. Get involved in our Facebook group or like our Facebook page, and get more out of your Apple tech with Mac Voices magazine, free on Flipboard and on the web. And if you find value in it all, consider supporting us through either our Patreon campaign at patreon.com/MacVoices, or by making a one-time donation via the PayPal link on our front page and in the show notes of each episode. You will join these fine people who help bring you Mac Voices. Advertising handled by Backbeat Media at backbeatmedia.com. Bandwidth provided by CacheFly at cachefly.com.